morning, everyone, and welcome to Big Data Days 2022. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I will be your host for this year's conference. I'm incredibly excited that you have taken the time to join this year's event, where for the first time in 3 years, we will be hosting the Big Data Days over 2 days with more than 30 speakers from all around the world. This year's event is also going to be different in the sense that for the first time, we will have 2 separate tracks. So that every day and every moment, there will be 2 sessions running concurrently. Throughout the platform, you can choose which session to attend, and we've made 2 separate tracks. One is more business oriented for people who are less comfortable with more programming languages and the technology. And one track is a little bit more technical, and we'll dive into some of the deeper understanding around how to build machine learning models and how to analyze big data. In these first few minutes, I will introduce what you can expect around the conference. I will showcase an overview of the speakers and how you can use the conference platform to increase your experience of Big Data Days 2022. But first of all, let me give you an overview of the incredible amount of speakers that we've collected from all over the planet. In this year's conference, we have speakers from the United States all the way to Australia and almost every time zone and country in between. For that reason, we have ensured that the conference is planned in the European time zone so that people both from the US as well as Southeast Asia can join this event. That means that we needed to struggle sometimes a little bit with the time zones. But don't worry, all of the sessions will be recorded, and afterwards, if you would like to watch back a particular recording, you can always do that. Also, if there are 2 sessions that are running concurrently and you would like to see both, please don't hesitate to download and review the recording afterwards. It is not without these speakers that this event would be possible. So I would like to take a moment to put your hands together in this virtual platform and to show us your appreciation for this incredible list of speakers that is part of Big Data Days 2022. Another key thing that I would like to start with is that this event would not have been possible without our partners and sponsors. Most prominently, AWS, Quint, HighLogic, Scibient, and Advisors, who are our sponsors and that are participating to make this event possible. Besides these sponsors, I would also like to point out a number of industry partners, like the Big Data community, publisher Kogan Page, the Exam Institute APMG International, and our strategic partner for this year, the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, which is based in Malaysia. A heartfelt appreciation towards our sponsors that make every year the Big Data Days possible, and without whom we would not be able to host this event today. One of the sponsors has also made it possible to order books on their website for all conference attendees with a particular discount code. With the discount code BigData25, you will get 25% discount off on all Kogan Page books. Today, at the end of the session of the day, we will be having a session by a number of authors of some of the books. So I highly encourage you to check this out and make use of this virtual code. Another new thing for this year is that the conference and all conference presentations are accessible through the mobile app. Through the Zoho application, you can also join, watch, and participate in all of the sessions on a mobile phone. In case you haven't downloaded the app, now would be a very good moment to do that, so that even if you're on the move, you can follow the conference with you. The next thing that is also new for this year is that all of the recordings will be made available immediately upon the completion of the session. On the conference website, you will already see placeholders for all of the individual sessions. And as soon as we're done with the session, our team will start processing the videos and will upload them in the backend. These recordings will remain available for everyone who's logged in and has signed up for the conference this year. So if there's 2 sessions that you would like to see, or there's a session which is in a very difficult time zone for you, please make sure that you review some of the recordings. Last but not least, I would like to introduce the hosts for the 2 different tracks this year. First of all, my name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I will be hosting the business track for this year. My colleague Jeremy Chia is going to be hosting the technical track and will be hosting the sessions that you will see depicted in green. Please extend a warm word of welcome also to my colleague Jeremy, who will be hosting the other set of speakers. During any of the sessions, you can switch back and forth between the 2 tracks. So if you would like to switch sessions, you can always do that. You can only attend 1 session at a time, so it's not possible to review multiple sessions with the same account at the same time. Good. This year's conference will be hosted in a platform which is known as Zoho Backstage. And this provides some additional features and functionality for you. On the right-hand side, you can see a question and answer functionality. And we strongly encourage you to use that during each of the sessions. We have around 800 registrations in this session and for this conference. So if everyone starts putting messages in the chat, it will become quite difficult to monitor everything. By using the Q&A functionality, other participants can upvote or downvote questions that they would like to see moderated. We will generally moderate questions for every session at the end of every session. So the last 5 to 10 minutes will be used for centralized Q&A. Besides this, there is also functionality to use the chat. You can show appreciation by clapping, smiling, or putting your thumbs up in case there's comments that you like from different speakers. I always strongly encourage you to make this conference as interactive as possible. The whole value in attending these kinds of sessions live is that you can interact with our speakers, you can ask questions, and you can dive deeper into a topic that is particularly interesting for you. Last but not least, I would like to introduce the hashtags for this event. It's nowadays not possible anymore to organize an event without a good social media presence. And you might have seen a lot of communication around Big Data Days already. In case you would like to post anything on any social media platform, we strongly encourage you to use the hashtag Big Data Days 2022 so that we can centralizely coordinate and monitor all activity around the event. Last but not least, I want to wish you a number of days of inspiration, a lot of learning, and connecting and engaging with other speakers and conference participants. In this year's event, we truly have a global audience, which provides you with a lot of opportunities to broaden your skills and enlarge your network. I strongly suggest you make use of this opportunity and that you will have a very fun, energy-filled Big Data Days 2022. After this brief introduction around the conference, I'm going to quickly switch presentations where we're going to go towards the opening keynote, which I will be delivering as well. Give me a quick moment to do so, and then we'll get started with the first session. Welcome back towards the first opening remarks. And for this year's theme, I've chosen Inspire, Learn, and Start. 3 key themes that I thought would be fitting for an opening presentation. First of all, I would like to inspire you to learn more around the fascinating world of big data and what we can do with big data technology. Secondly, I'd like you to learn something. And for this conference presentation, I've selected an overview of the Enterprise Big Data Framework and will show you how you can build big data capabilities within an organization. And what was some of the reasons that the Enterprise Big Data Framework was developed originally. And last but not least, I would want to make sure that you have some tools to get started. I hope that the learning and inspiration provide you with an understanding that something needs to change in order to get started. And I would like to showcase you some of the tools that you could use in order to get started immediately. Before we get started, let me take a very brief moment to introduce myself. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I'm responsible for the organization Cybient, which is based in Kuala Lumpur. Besides that, I'm also the author of the Enterprise Big Data Framework, and I've co-authored a number of the educational programs that are today the Big Data Framework. On the left-hand side of this slide, you can see all of my personal contact details. So if you want to get in touch with me after or during the conference, please always feel free to drop me a line. In the next 2 days during the conference, I'm obviously going to be a little bit busy with monitoring and moderating all of the sessions. But I will promise to take a look as quickly after the conference is finished and follow up with all of the messages that people have sent me. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter to learn more about the Big Data Framework and the Big Data presentations and programs. Last but not least, the Enterprise Big Data Framework is also available into a series of volumes. Some of them are free for download, and my latest book will be published in the fall of this year, which is called the Enterprise Big Data Framework, Building Critical Capabilities to Win in the Data Economy. For today's session, I'm going to split it into 3 main themes. First of all, I'm going to discuss the need for enterprise big data and showcase how you can use data to start winning in the data economy. I'll show you how to get a competitive advantage through analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Secondly, I'm going to educate you a little bit on the Enterprise Big Data Framework. I will showcase why it was developed, what the main ideas behind it are, and I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the essential capabilities that make up the Big Data Framework. Last but not least, I'm going to show you how to get started, and I will provide you with an overview of some tools that will show you how you can get started with enterprise big data tomorrow. So let's get started with the first part, which is inspiration. One of the reasons you've probably signed up for this conference is that you would like to learn more around big data analytics and the way that data is changing our everyday lives. And the good news is that you're not alone. Data and enterprise data keep on growing every single year and become more and more relevant in decision making. Many companies nowadays see data as one of the ways in which they can achieve a competitive advantage. Big data is almost everywhere. You just need to open any technology industry publication, and you will see a lot of publications around the need for data analytics, and especially the need for knowledge around data and data analytics. The war on talent within the big data domain has really started. And a recent report that you can see in the middle of the screen shows that big data and analytics is forecast to be the most in-demand skill in 2022, which is obviously this year. Big data and big data analytics are here to stay. There is a significant demand for people who have knowledge and skills. And I hope that during this conference, you will pick up on some of these skills as well. A lot of companies nowadays realize that they can use data to increase their decision making and also become more competitive. And that is literally a race towards the top. Because through data-driven decision making, you can make better decisions and outperform your competitors, providing newer data with which you can increase that cycle as well. You see that the war for talent has gone across the globe and that there's now a global competition for talent to transform the way that organizations can operate. Many of the pictures that you see here are coming from research reports which show the relevance and increase in data worldwide. One of the ways I always like to explain this is by showing a little video, which is very well showcasing how data can be used to get a competitive edge. The example I've chosen for today is coming from the sports domain, where big data is now also used to make strategic decision making. Give me a quick moment to start sharing this video.
Being first across the finish line requires more than flawless aerodynamics and legendary driving. Today, Formula One racing is also fueled by data. 150 sensors monitor car and driver performance around every corner. These sensors track vital stats like engine performance, tire health, brake wear, and driver biometrics. In one lap, they will collect and transmit 2 gigabytes of data. In a single race, a staggering 3 terabytes. Analysis that previously took almost a week to process can be completed in the span of a pit stop. Back at McLaren Mission Control, engineers and experts analyze race data and work to maximize performance for the car and the driver. They make critical decisions at every turn, through every lap, every heartbeat. Strategies evolve as the race progresses, and powerful predictions help light the path to the podium. Now McLaren can compare 10 years of historical data against the real-time race feed in every calculation. This enables the team to make more confident predictions and help guide their drivers on the track. Confident predictions mean faster, more informed decisions, and informed decisions win races.
Good, I always like showing this video because it so very well explains how data is used to drive decision making. And the one main thing I want you to take away from this video is that data enables you to win. It enables organizations like McLaren to win in sports and to get this competitive advantage over other teams. And this is very well explained because Formula One is obviously a race towards the finish the fastest. And this is the way I want you to start thinking about data. Data analytics, and the value that you can retrieve from data provides organizations with a competitive edge. If you're doing this faster, better than any of your competition, that means that ultimately you're going to be the organization that will win in a data economy. So I hope that throughout the next 2 days, you're going to be inspired to learn a little bit more around this, and that you start to see that data-driven decisions are almost always better than human-generated ones. And that by becoming a data-driven decision, you can get that competitive edge as well. One of the other main things that I very much like about the video is that you show the need for that real-time decision-making. During any Formula One race, there's a tremendous amount of information that is being captured. And teams need to have the ability to realize or to analyze and see that data in real time so that they can make split-minute decisions make more adequate and accurate predictions about what to do next. You could even go as far today as to say that Formula One is a sport that is driven obviously by technology and innovation and drivers, but also for a very significant part by data and data-driven decisions. However, there is a very strong downside towards this domain of big data, and that's expressed on the slide in front of you. There's been a lot of talk in recent years around the fact that big data is the new oil in terms of value, the new gold in terms of the value that it can provide long term. But nowadays, data is everywhere. And the title that you see on the book on the right, I personally very much like, is that big data is the new water. It's everywhere, but in order to retrieve value from it, you need to start having good insights about it. One of the main difficulties that you're seeing with data, big data and analytics is that many companies struggle to really extract value that is long-term and that is measurable. And on the slide in front of you, you see some research from Accenture that shows that 32% of companies report being able to realize tangible as well as measurable value from data. And there's 3 main key challenges that need to be addressed. In most cases, there's a lack of an enterprise big data strategy. Either the data cannot be trusted, or it is siloed and hidden away and people are not able to extract and make decisions based on real-time information. And this is fairly similar to what I've seen in practice as well. A lot of the projects that I've been doing with customers, these are critical aspects that are lacking. One of the main reasons why the big data framework was developed is to tackle some of these issues. Because I always wondered why there is not a standardized and proven methodology that can be used by every organization. And that is basically where the big data framework originated from. Because it's basically a gap. On the one hand side, almost every company sees the need to change, sees the value that data can bring, and most organizations also have the willingness to start doing something about it. There's budget available, there's willingness to invest, and there's also the ability to start some pilot projects around that. On the other hand, there is this research that shows that a significant number of data projects are still failing, that the costs are high, and that it's very difficult to set up a good big data environment due to security concerns or, for instance, a lack of knowledge. So the main question is, how do we bridge that gap? I always very much like the picture that you see in the middle, and that is to build a bridge. The reason that I've chosen this picture is because a bridge is basically a structure. A bridge is providing people with the trust that they can bridge the gap between these two mountains. If the structure wouldn't be there, they would all fall probably towards their death. By the way, does anyone of you know where this bridge is located? Yeah, very good. So the bridge is indeed in China. So I strongly encourage you to visit this. I think this is a very beautiful structure. But this is kind of an analogy I want you to start seeing for big data analytics as well. In order to be successful and in order to bridge that gap between willingness on the one hand side and success on the other hand side, you need to come up with a structure. And that structure has been created in the form of the Enterprise Big Data Framework. When we started to create the Enterprise Big Data Framework, we took a number of core principles. And I think it's good to kind of explain this because it shows the reason why we're all here today within this conference. First of all, what we wanted to do with the framework is to make sure that there is a uniform approach around building skills and knowledge around big data. Many organizations struggle, especially on the skills and knowledge part. The technology they have ability to get, but to get people in their organization aware and knowledgeable around data-driven decision-making is typically the hard part. The second main principle is that we wanted to come up with something that is vendor independent. A lot of technology and big data solutions today are driven by very large technology vendors who have an interest to push and sell their products. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, in order to ensure that there is a framework or structure that can cater to any kind of organization, regardless of location or technology, we wanted to come up with an approach that is vendor independent. A little bit later in the second part, I will show you what steps we've taken to ensure that this was done in a vendor independent point of view. The third major aspect is to also look at what I refer to as the people aspect of big data. You can have the best technology in the world, but in the end, big data analytics is still a people business. People need to build the models. People need to understand what information to look for. So there needs to be a lot more focus around the people aspect. And that's what we try to incorporate in the framework as well. And last but not least, we wanted to make sure that the framework becomes measurable. It's not just a simple initiation project that you can do in order to get this completed. There's a need to take a step-by-step approach to make sure that organizations can improve on their framework along the way. And that's why we've chosen for a capability model, which I will show you in a second. Building those capabilities over time, structurally and step by step, will ensure that an organization can grow in their big data maturity. With every step they're taking, they will become more knowledgeable, more able to make better decisions. And this can be developed over a period of time. So in summary, we could say that the Enterprise Big Data Framework provides a practical and hands-on approach that organizations can use that want to take the next steps within big data. It provides that structure that I think is lacking and which a lot of organizations can use in order to take their next steps. So a couple of other good things to know about the framework. First of all, note that one of the guiding principles of the Alliance is to make sure that the Big Data Framework tries to promote collaboration around industry partners. And with industry partners, we mean the academic institutes, industry partners that develop data tools, but also specifically the practitioners. That also means that all of the framework guides are available under Creative Commons licenses. In other words, it's free to start reading this and start applying it in your own organization. All of the books that you see here on the right-hand side are built and can be downloaded on the website free of charge. And that's also obviously one of the easy ways with which you can get started. We found a very good industry partner who has also made a certification program out of this. And this is APMG International. APMG International ensures that all across the world, certifications and knowledge around big data best practices is administered in exactly the same way. Last but not least, one of our other objectives is to make sure that knowledge around these best practices is being shared. And that is basically the reason why we're in this conference today. This is nowadays the third edition of the Enterprise Big Data Days. And in the first edition, it was just a one-day, a couple of speakers event. Last year, we already moved towards 16 sessions. And now for the first time, we have a two-day event with 30 speakers from across the world, 2 tracks, and more than 800 participants who are joining in the session today. So we see that the Enterprise Big Data Framework is growing. There's more traction, there's more people who want to be involved. And that's also an open invitation for everyone. If you want to start being involved with the Big Data Framework Alliance, by all means, feel free to contact us and showcase where you can contribute towards the industry as well. And that's the main thing. Big data is a people business, and it is by practitioners and for practitioners that this will become further adopted. Good. You might have wondered so far, he's been talking about a framework for quite a lot of time. So what is this framework actually containing and what does it look like? So in this last slide of the opening part, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the Enterprise Big Data Framework itself. And that's the model that you see here on the screen. The Enterprise Big Data Framework consists of 6 core capabilities that organizations would need to grow and develop in order to make big data successful. In other words, how can they establish a structure with which they can move towards a more data-driven organization? And those 6 key elements you're seeing here on the slide in front of you. Every company needs to start with defining a big data strategy. Then they need to look at the technical aspects like architecture and algorithms. They also need to look at processes. So think about security and data privacy that we're going to discuss in more detail. Then there's the people aspect, which we've captured in big data functions and talks about how do you set up measurable ways of working, how do you set up a center of excellence approach, so that knowledge is being developed and also shared in the rest of the organization. And last but not least, we also chosen to embed artificial intelligence as an extension of the Big Data Framework. And you see deliberately that this is positioned as a ring on the outside. Artificial intelligence, about which there's a whole lot of popularity nowadays, basically builds upon your enterprise big data organization. If you want to start making smarter decisions or automated decisions, you will still need to have the underlying infrastructure that you also would need in a big data organization. So I will show you how that works within a second. The main message here is that you need to start considering all of those 6 critical capabilities, and that you can start to develop and grow those capabilities over time. So I hope that section provided you with some inspiration and now see more of the need to start working with big data. Couple of key lessons here is that I want you to really see that big data can provide a competitive advantage. Think back about the video and how better decision-making can lead companies to be first at the finish line. Very similar how that works for sports. This is the same for enterprise organizations. Through data, smart decision-making can be increased, which will help you gain a competitive advantage over time. I'd now like to move towards the second session of this presentation, in which we're going to be talking a little bit more around education and learning. I'm going to give you a very brief overview, and I need to kind of keep it short because of the sake of time and all the other good speakers that we have waiting. And that is an overview of what we mean with those 6 critical capabilities. I'm going to get started with giving you some of the highlights around how you can build each of those capabilities. I'm going to start with strategy, which is still an element that is very much lacking in almost every organization. We've also seen that from the research that I presented earlier. One of my favorite quotes to explain strategy within a big data context is coming from the book and movie Alice in Wonderland. And that's the quote you see on the left-hand side of the slide. When Alice falls down the rabbit hole, she is running around blindly until she arrives at a tree. And there's this big pink and purple cat that is in the top of the tree. And Alice is in panic. She's asking, where should I be going? And the cat asks, where do you want to go? And Alice says, well, I don't know. And then the cat has this very famous phrase, which I kind of like to always use during presentations because it articulates so well the essence of strategy. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And this is what I've seen organizations struggling with. There is so much data out there that you could potentially spend the rest of your life starting to make all kinds of nice, cool, fun, or fancy data analysis. You can never be done with running data analysis. But the main point is that big data and analytics is only going to be valuable if you very clearly define how data is going to power your business decisions. In other words, you need a strategy. Big data solutions, by their definition, are not inexpensive toys. They will require significant investments in terms of infrastructure, technology, but also people who need to build that. So you need to very clearly define how are you going to get a return on investment. What is necessary to start building in order to say that a big data program is going to be successful. A big data strategy is something that organizations need to start with. They need to start defining their business objectives, look at their current capabilities, and through the cycle that you see on the screen, ultimately make sure that they're following a plan based on those business activities. Also note that this is never just a one-time exercise. You can see on the slide that this is a cyclical approach. So as your organization grows and develops, your business objectives and your big data strategy might change. So this is a part that will never finish, but very many organizations lack the capabilities to put this in place in a structured way. The second main part that is necessary in order to achieve success is to establish a big data architecture. An architecture itself contains all of the technical components that are necessary to make big data work. And yes, that means you do need to invest in some of the underlying architecture. One of the basic premises of the big data framework is that we wanted to come up with a technology agnostic or vendor independent approach. And the methodology that we've selected is to build upon the NIST big data reference architecture, better known as the MBDRA. The NIST Big Data Reference Architecture is an open standard which is free for every organization to use and outlines the critical components which should be part of any big data organization. Unfortunately for today, we don't have time to go into each of those details in detail or each of these components in detail, but I strongly encourage you to check this out. This model and this reference architecture provides you with that vendor-independent approach that provides a design first and then starts to talk about technology and tools. And that's a very good way to structure your underlying big data architecture. The third critical capability is to start building skills and knowledge around how do you retrieve value from data. And in order to retrieve value from data, you need algorithms. This is probably more popularly known as the data science part of big data. People need to understand how value can be achieved, what algorithms to use, and what are some of the edge cases that explain which algorithm is best to use in a particular situation. And that is really clearly a knowledge domain. Within the big data framework, we've structured this knowledge domain into a number of different fields, like inference problems, regression problems, classification, clustering, and outlier detection, which you see here on the slide. Learning more around the data science part of big data is very crucial in order to make it successful. Because if you don't know what you're looking for in terms of a model or in terms of your data sets, it also becomes very, very difficult to do this successfully. Fourthly, we need to start looking at capabilities that are necessary within an enterprise and within a larger organization. And we refer to this as big data processes. Big data processes are necessary in any larger kind of organization because data needs to be shared across departments, typically across different boundaries, and there's even rules and regulations that you need to comply with. If you look at some of the most popular processes that you need to consider, you can think about an analysis process, governance, data management, or even security and privacy. As a larger organization, you need to think about how is data being transported, who has access to it, and how do you comply with data privacy and security regulations. You need to think about that right from the start, because if you don't, that could lead towards very significant problems for the rest of your organization. This part of the framework builds capabilities to ensure that data is being used in a compliant, safe, and responsible way. And this is also a thing that I see very much lacking in a lot of organizations. There might be some processes defined, but it's not structural, and it's not improved over time. Then we get towards probably one of the most significant parts of the framework, and that is the capability around the human fact function. I already mentioned to you before that big data is ultimately a knowledge domain, done and executed by people. And those people are the ones that ultimately extract value from the data. As an organization, you therefore need to ensure that you create a structure and a way of working that is building up a center of excellence model. Knowledge needs to be shared between different parts of the organization, and you need to have a uniform focal point that will start to become the key contact or single point of contact for data-driven decision making. Building up this knowledge component in the organization is difficult. So you need to start thinking about what kind of methodologies do we need? How are we going to make business cases? And all of that knowledge is typically combined within a big data center of excellence. Focusing on the human aspect of big data cannot be underestimated. Hiring a number of very smart data scientists is simply not enough. You need to embed these capabilities on a more structural basis. Make sure that your roles and responsibilities align. Make sure that there's adequate training programs, and all of these more human resource related aspects when it comes towards big data. This is also an area that I've been seeing lacking in a lot of organizations. There's frequently a lot of focus around the technological aspects, but the human aspect is for that reason typically not top of mind. And with the big data framework, we're trying to alter that particular perception. The last critical capability is to recognize that artificial intelligence will build on top of your framework. A lot of people always ask me, I would like to start with artificial intelligence. And then I ask in return, well, how is your data architecture structured? What kind of processes do you have in place? Because if that's not there, then moving towards a decision-making which is done by computers will even become more difficult. You don't have good and adequate processes like security and privacy that we talked about, or you don't have an environment that can support that, then moving towards artificial intelligence is very difficult. I also therefore urge you to start thinking about artificial intelligence as an extension of your big data analytics environment. And with that extension, we're focusing typically on a number of additional knowledge domains like NLP, machine learning, knowledge representation, and automated reasoning, which you can see here on the slide. That all builds on top of your existing structure. And without that existing structure, AI will be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to realize. And I kind of also want you to see here what is the relationship between big data and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is typically considered a different knowledge domain. But what very few people realize is that it builds on top of the same principles, the same processes that you would need in a big data environment. So within this last 15 to 20 minutes, I hope I've given you an introduction towards that 6 critical capabilities of the Enterprise Big Data Framework. And if there's one thing I hope you will take away from this session, is that you start to think about, how does my organization address these 6 capabilities? How can we make sure that we start doing this in a better and more advanced way? Good. That concludes my second part, which is the learning part. The last, and I will keep this brief because we're almost out of time, is to get started with this methodology. Get started with building your big data capabilities today. On the slide in front of you, I've given you a number of quick tips on how you can get started today. I already mentioned that there's a ton of resources which are available for free and online under the Creative Commons license. So you can go to the Big Data website, download the books, read them, share them, and start thinking about how you can use the framework within your own organization. The second key part that I strongly encourage you to do during this conference as well, it's one of the key reasons we're organizing it, is to strengthen your network. Exchange ideas with different other participants, speakers, connect with them on LinkedIn or through other forms of social media. And if you are ready or feel like you would like to take a step as well to contribute towards the community, apply to become a Big Data Framework ambassador. We have a dedicated ambassador program of people who are advocating for big data best practices. And on our website, you can apply to become an ambassador. So read up on that, and I strongly encourage you to check that out. And last but not least, let us know if you would also like to contribute in any other way. If, for instance, you're inspired to also host a speaking session, for instance, during next year's event, or during any of our other webinars or upcoming sessions, please feel free to reach out to us, because this can help you elevate your knowledge and meet other industry practitioners. And with that, I would like to open up for very quick questions and answers before we're moving towards the next session. I see one quick question coming in, and that is, will all of the presentations be shared? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. So after every session, we will make the video as well as the presentations available online so that you can review some of these materials or maybe share them internally. They will be in a PDF format, so they are not easily alterable. But yes, all of the materials will be available. Good. We already have our next speakers waiting for the next session. So give me a moment to put them on the screen. And then I'm going to strongly encourage you to check those out as well. So coming up next, we have a speaker from Australia. The host of the analytics show, Jason Tan, is going to talk about how you can use big data in a practical environment. Our second speaker from South Africa, Zakia, is going to be talking about how do you take the D from data and desperation out of your data environment. So I strongly encourage you to check out this session as well. Thanks so much again for joining Big Data Days. I hope you will have a lot of fun during the upcoming conference, learn a lot of new things, and network with other people. I will see you back in one of the 2 next upcoming sessions. Thanks so much for joining, and have a good conference ahead.